can't have a preposition without an object, and that object is always going to be a noun or a pronoun. Okay? Together, they make a prepositional phrase. Into the house, that's a phrase. All right. A phrase is a group of words. A clause actually contains a subject and a verb. So a phrase is smaller than a clause, it doesn't contain a subject and a verb. And a phrase attaches itself to the rest of the sentence. How does this phrase attach to the rest of the sentence? What does it tell us about? What question does it answer? The child ran where? Where did the child run? The child ran into the house. So it's answering a sort of spatial question. Where did the child run? The child ran into the house. Every preposition and prepositional phrase in English and in Greek is going to answer some question about the rest of the sentence. It's going to describe a relationship between this object, house, and some other word in this sentence. In this sentence, it's ran. Does that make sense? Child ran into the house. Everybody see how you make a prepositional phrase with a preposition and its object. Okay. Great. You could also have an example, for example, supper is served. I wish this were true. Maybe we should say breakfast. Breakfast is served before class. All right. Yeah, I wish. So here we got another English sentence. We've got our preposition before. The only word that follows it is a noun here. It could have been a pronoun, but here it's a noun, so we've got our object in the preposition. We've got our prepositional phrase when we include the preposition and its object. And then this prepositional phrase, what does it tell us about in this sentence? Breakfast is served when? It talks about time. Yeah, good. So it modifies the verb. When is breakfast served? Breakfast is served before class. It's going to be the exact same thing in Greek. So, again, a preposition is a word that connects a noun or pronoun, its object, to the rest of the sentence. Okay. So the difference with Greek is that this is the key thing for today. The key thing. The difference with Greek is that the meaning of the preposition depends on the case of the object of the preposition. I'm going to write this out just because it is so important. If you get nothing else out of this class, this is the key piece. Okay, the meaning of the preposition depends upon the case of the object of the preposition. So in English, we don't have these strange case endings. We have some words that change based on how they're used in a sentence, but it's not inflected like Greek is. All right. So in Greek, whenever you have a preposition, it will never change its spelling, or it'll never change its form like a noun or a pronoun would. It doesn't have a declension. You don't add asku, or, on, anything to it. All right, it stays relatively the same. We'll look at a couple changes later. Okay, but then the object of the preposition, it will change its case. All right, and an object of the preposition can only be in the genitive, dative, or accusative cases. It can never be in the nominative case. It can never be in the nominative case. So how do you know whether a particular preposition takes a particular object and in a certain case? Well, some prepositions only take one case. Some prepositions take 3 different cases, and their meaning changes dramatically based on what case the object is. We'll look at some examples. So let's talk about the functions now. So let's take an example real quick. Okay, let's take the preposition in. In is one of my favorite prepositions because what does it mean? It means in. Hallelujah. So you have the word in, the preposition in. All right? The preposition in will always be followed by a noun or pronoun in the dative. It can never be followed by a noun or pronoun in the genitive or in the accusative. All right, so let's say the noun or pronoun that we find is to lago. Okay. So now the prepositional phrase, you've got, it begins with the preposition, it ends with the noun or pronoun that is its object, and so now we have the prepositional phrase. How do we translate it? In the word. Okay, I noticed two different answers. One group said in the word, and another group said into the word. All right, so the preposition in Greek means in. It means in. It does not mean into. We have another preposition for that. But, exactly, ace. Yeah. And so, but you might be tempted to add to because that's the helping word that you learned from the dative, right? Right? And what's the function that's associated with the dative so far that you know? The indirect object. And that's when you use to or for. Okay? But you see, when a dative is an object of the preposition, like it is here, because it's preceded by a preposition, it cannot be an indirect object. Instead, it's the object of the preposition. Does that make sense? It is not the indirect object because it is the object of the preposition. So the preposition that comes before it basically traps it into the prepositional phrase, and it can't be an indirect object of another verb or something. So you don't use to or for when you have a dative that follows after a preposition. Okay, so this is in the word. Is how it translates. Now that's a little complicated, the things that I just said. But does that make general sense? So any questions? We don't use to or for with this particular translation because this is not functioning like an indirect object. Instead, it's functioning like an object of the preposition in. And in, why is it in the dative? Because in always takes its object in the dative. And that's just how it works. Does that make sense?